military spouses have the highest unemployment rate in the country. I don't know if people know that, but it's almost 30%. And that's spouses who are willing and trying to find work. And what that does is it impacts our military families as a whole. We're not financially stable because of it. And then we are not mentally stable because of it. And then we beg our spouses, the active duty service member, to get out of the military, which impacts our military readiness.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of American Snippets. I'm your co-host, Barb Allen, here today with not one, but two dynamic women who I am thrilled to have an opportunity to sit down with. You all know I once upon a time was a military spouse. I'm no longer a military spouse per se. I have sadly moved over into the Gold Star community, but that is another story. But the point is, I do have great memories and recollection and great respect for those people who are currently in the military spouse community. It is not an easy place to be. It is often an under-recognized community to be a part of, although now I'm excited to see it is on the upswing, largely in part to women like these two. As a quick background, that being a military spouse comes with all sorts of challenges in addition to just maintaining a marriage, which is a project in itself. You're often moving from here to there. You're transporting children, starting new lives, losing your friends, your support networks. It's almost impossible to have any kind of meaningful career in the traditional sense. And certainly that was the way back in my day when I was it. And so to see women coming together to say, hey, look, here's a problem. I am going to address it instead of sitting around complaining about it, which is also very easy to do, is really, really cool. And Moni Jefferson and Flossie Hall are two women who are active duty military spouses. Hats off to you and to your spouses for their service as well. And they saw this problem. They dealt with it. They felt the challenges of that situation and then said, you know what, I'm going to change it. And then they did something else, which many women often have a hard time doing. They found a woman to work with and together with and lift up and defied all these stereotypes about women being catty and competitive and showed the great things that can happen when women come together and work to support each other. Their new organization, Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs, is just taking off and set to do great, great things. We're going to sit down, hear a little bit of the backstory on both of them, how they came together, what the organization doing, how you can get involved, and why it matters for everybody, not just military spouses, but the ripple effect it has throughout the entire country. Thanks for sitting with me through that long intro, but it's always good to give a little background and let everybody know, what's in store for them. How are you girls doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're super pumped to be here.
We are very excited to have you here. And we got to connect with you via somebody else that we admire, Charlinda, who is amazing, right? That's the exact face to make when you say,
I know.
Yes. That's the only appropriate response to the two words, Charlinda Scales, because she is amazing. So let's start, as promised, we'll start with you, Flossie, and get a little bit of your background because both of you have very impressive professional backgrounds before you even came together to build this insanely awesome thing you have going on here. Tell us about where you are now, Flossie.
Yeah. So like you said, my husband's in the Navy. He's been in the Navy about 18 years. And we had this crazy nomadic lifestyle. You get dragged all over the country. You got to take care of the kids. You got to move from house to house. You don't get the choice of where you live and what you do and when. And I was in school full time and I had this dream of becoming a doctor and was going to school for 10 years and transferring from state to state and school to school and, just sucking it up every time going, I'm just going to keep going until I get there. And as a military spouse, people don't understand how hard it is to actually even complete a degree sometimes because of your lifestyle, let alone complete that degree and then get a job in the field you have a degree in. So I finally graduated and applied to medical school. My husband was getting deployed again. And I just realized with 4 kids at home, there's no possible way I was going to go to medical school anytime soon um, after 10 years. So I actually started a meal prepping business out of my house in San Diego about 6 years ago now. And it was completely accidental. I had never taken a business class in my life, and I needed income. It was something I'd already been doing for myself and some friends, and it exploded into a really big business. I took it commercial after a few months of doing it out of base housing, and it became a multi-million-dollar business.
So you
Which
say,
is
I'm going to
insane.
stop you right there for a second, because you're just like, I did this and I did that, I did that. But there's no, like, you don't just like, oh, I took a commercial. Like you say that with like your great hair and your big smile, like it was no big problem, right? Like, oh, I just took but that's a step that a lot of people just hit a wall and don't get past. So that, and then exploding. Oh, and then it exploded. Like you're very humble about all that. And you downplay it, which is cool and great to see. But on the other hand, props to you, because that's no small accomplishment. And can I just stop you for a second and break that down for just a little bit? So I get that you were doing that for yourself and for your friends and did it on base. What was that leap? Like, I'm going to take this from my friends and my base and go commercial.
Well, honestly, I'm a big thinker. And anybody who knows me knows that I don't think small. And when I do things, I see these things in a really, really large way. And I don't go, oh, I'm just going to make a few meals for friends. If I start doing something, I go, I'm going to make this so it's going to be in every grocery store in the country. And that's exactly what I said when I was at home. And people thought I was nuts. But that's still my thinking today. And I don't know why that's my train of thought, but I'm just a world dominator that way, I guess. So, and I just happened to be really lucky that there was a gap in the market. I had a product that people loved, and the demand for it, I couldn't keep up with it. So I had a problem that entrepreneurs don't really have, was that I couldn't sell my product fast enough. I couldn't make it fast enough.
Right.
I couldn't hire enough people. I couldn't buy enough food. I couldn't keep up with the growth. So even though I never took a business class, I failed every way possible. I did everything wrong. You name it. I'd never even stepped foot in a commercial cooking kitchen until the day I literally rented one. I walked in and was like, oh, this is great. I had to learn how to use commercial cooking equipment, which is big and scary. And I have scars all over my body from burns. But I don't have a fear of failure. You have to be able to just take the leap and jump and learn from your mistakes. And I knew what I was doing was great. And I knew that people wanted what I was doing. And I just kept going every single day, even though I was getting my butt kicked. And I just grew and grew and grew. And I know that I downplay it because it's kind of weird bragging about yourself. And I know it was really great things, but I definitely failed a lot during that whole entire process.
How was that with your 4 kids? Like, I have 4 kids, and, I did a lot of that all on my own. So you just instantly connect. Like, I used to make calls like from the closet when my kids were like, having a snack or something, I mean, so I know, and I think moms know what that's like, right? To have young children and trying to be like a person on top of that and a person making money. How did you do that with, I'm sure they had school, preschool, daycare, babysitters, plus they're lethal in a kitchen, let alone a commercial cooking kitchen. How did you do that?
Well, I mean, I got really lucky. My oldest at the time was 16. So he was actually my very first employee, him and his girlfriend, and they were my last employees at the end. So it was really great. But they helped me out a lot. And then I had at the time, 14-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So they were a little bit bigger. So I didn't have little tiny ones running around. Yeah. But I have an amazing husband who was at home with the kids working. And honestly, the meal prepping industry runs on the weekends. So my schedule was Thursday through Sunday. And I had an office that I worked out of on Thursdays and Fridays. And then Saturdays and Sundays, my husband was home. So except for deployments, which then I had babysitters. So it was actually a really great thing for a long time because our schedules were kind of opposite. So it worked out really well, but I definitely had kids in the office, and all my staff members who were also military spouses had kids in the office on iPads and kids on delivery routes. And we had teenagers on staff all the time, all hands on deck. And it was definitely, it was a great environment, but you got to make it work in this community. And that's why I became my own boss, was because I couldn't get hired by anybody because of my schedule. So I had to do something where when I had meetings, my kids were in my meetings with me. And if people didn't like it, they didn't have to do work with me.
Yep. I hear all of that. And then, so you sold your company?
So the first company, I actually had an offer to purchase the company. My husband PCS or was, had orders to take another duty station, of course, because military life doesn't tell you where you can live. And so I had an offer to sell my company. So I packed up, moved, and the offer fell through. So
amazing.
You live, you learn all these great things, and you learn them the hard way. So I still own my company 110%. I've had some offers since then. Everyone asked, why don't you just reopen it? But my heart is not in mass food production anymore. I learned a lot of great things from my first company. I did a lot of great things, but I was a slave to that company 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And my heart's just not in it. When your heart's not in it anymore, then you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. No matter how much money that you make, it's just not worth it. So I'm just now getting back out of the PTSD of it and fielding some other options to make sure that I continue its legacy in other ways.
Perfect. Okay, Moni, let's swing over to you.
I don't know. I don't think I can follow up on that.
Oh, stop.
Yes, you can.
I've seen what you do. I've seen what you're doing. Right? So let's start. I'm an accidental, success. Like, oh, that sucks, So come on, let's hear it. I know it's cool. Okay. It's unique what you're doing. I was like, oh, you shut up. She made like this huge success out of that. Who knew? But now I do.
Yeah. So I was a stay-at-home mom for 11 years.
Yeah.
And I have a degree in PR and public relations and communications that I never really quite used. Everywhere I went, I just started these groups and I ran all these social media, Facebook pages to try to connect people. And my husband deployed in 2014 and I wanted to do something. I didn't know what it was. I got tired of being a stay-at-home mom. And so I started writing. I started a blog called Dog Tags and Heels. And it went okay. I made some money. I worked for a couple of the military housing and wrote blogs for them and everything. And then I just wasn't fulfilled. So Roy came back. I was like, man, I'm not really happy with this. I like the way it's going, but I'm not really happy doing it. So writing just was not my thing. It wasn't something that made me happy. So we got up and moved at that time and moved to Maryland. And I started looking for work because I realized that Tiberius, which is my youngest, I have 3 kids, he was going to be starting school. And so well, who am I going to stay at home with? There's not going to be anybody here. How am I going to be a stay-at-home mom when people are gone all day? So I hit the road. I started applying for jobs in PR and communications. And I was getting some great callbacks and second and third interviews, but every single time it's the question is asked, especially in a place where nobody moves. So what brought you to Southern Maryland? It's not the beaches. It's not the city life. I mean, they knew, it's almost like they knew you were a military spouse. And so I feel like a lot of opportunities were missed because instead of embracing it and maybe creating a position for me with the many skills that I had, they, would say it's not a good fit or we can't invest in you at the time. And so I just started my own business. At the time, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I literally was like, I'm going to start a business and I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something for me. So I started a PR and social media agency called Dog Tags and Heels and started managing social media for the local networking groups that I was going to, the local businesses, and quickly turned that into practicing traditional PR. Simultaneously, what happened was I noticed a lot of everything I was doing was virtual, a lot of support, community, resources. So I started finding all of these entrepreneur Facebook groups, but nobody really understood my unique journey as an entrepreneur because I was moving every 3 years and I would have to start over or get creative on how to market myself online and things like that. So these groups were very tight knit. And these people have been in business in their city for years. And then I was in these other groups for military spouses, and they were support and encouraging and motivating. And I said, well, there's something missing here, and I need it. And if I know if I need it, there are other spouses who need it too. So I started the Mill Spouse Creative and Entrepreneurs. I think it's 4 or 5 years, this month. And I started it as a need for myself, to have a safe place to ask questions from other spouses that are experiencing and going through the same entrepreneur struggles I was. And it has grown into a very thriving, amazing community now that is global. So I'm super proud of that. I know. And I feel like after the entrepreneur bubble was busted, I was like, I'm going to do as many entrepreneur things I can. And I accidentally created some apps.
That's the word I love. I accidentally created apps.
It was really an accident. I literally woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, why don't we have any apps for military families just go on there and have some lifestyle things that are very unique and speak to us. And the next day I started on Facebook, who knows how to develop apps. I started some research. I do not code. So I had to hire somebody. So there was a lot of research that had to be done. So I created the MillCam app, Mill Emoji, and then I co-created another app called My Ultimate PCS with Maria Reed. So yeah, that happened. I feel like at some point it was like I had almost nothing, I did do a couple of MLMs and it was great for when I moved, but then having this was like, I was just like, no holds bar, I'm doing it all, we can do this. And so yeah, the apps have been successful. We raised some capital for the apps. And My Ultimate PCS is in 5,000 hands of military families, not to include the Android version, which is coming out sometime this month.
That is so cool. I love both of those stories for the I don't know what the determination it shows, right? It can be very hard to be in a situation and trapped. I remember my kids were teeny tiny. They were like toddlers still, or I'd be pregnant with one. And my husband was away for months training up here or there. And I was like, well, I got to make some money. I couldn't work. I remember taking my son into meetings with all these men, putting him on the table in the car seat, having him puke and crap all over the place on the table in front of all these dudes. And I'm like, well, you know what? This is what I got, and you just go home and you cry. Like you can't cry there, right? But you just go home and you cry. Like, I can't work. How am I going to do this? Nobody understands what it's like to go through. I wound up in real estate for that same reason. But you guys were like, I'm not even going to just go into like real estate and work for someone else. Like, I'm just going to create this whole new space that's like your own arena. And on top of raising kids, which is a freaking hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to do that.
It's so hard.
So yes. And Moni, I was looking at some of your things earlier, like both of you, and you said something that I think really dialed in. And you said it again, sort of here too, when you were talking about the project that you're doing now, which we're going to get to in a second. You said, I wish I'd had this 5 years ago when you were starting. And I think that is so cool and so prevalent in the mindset of people who do such impactful things. Like you guys have both succeeded. You've made it. I know you're going further. You haven't plateaued, right? But you could easily sit back and be like, all right, well, I came up the hard way. I figured it out on my own. But everybody else can figure it out on their own too. Like I did it, why can't they? But instead, the two of you came together and tell first talk about how you came together. How did you connect? And then the project you're working on now, the movement really that you've launched, which is going to literally help people change the trajectory of their lives and their families' lives all over the world, really.
I do have to mention too that Moni completely breezed over the fact that her PR company, she has national clients, like huge global national clients, by the way, now. And she likes to downplay herself too. And that's how I found Moni, is on the internet. So she's this vibrant, amazing, fiery Latina with so much spunk and energy. And I got invited to the Millspouse Creative Facebook group for entrepreneurs. And I started my business. I didn't have anybody to help me. And I was like Googling, and, everything was on Google and Yahoo and YouTube and, everything. And I was like, I didn't know there was this military community and this entrepreneur community. And I found this group and I was like, these are my people. Oh my gosh, I have people. And I didn't realize it was a thing. And then I saw Moni and I was like, who is this woman? And I was like, I have to know her. I was like, I love her. And I could just see her work ethic and her grit. And I was like, I have to work with you. I was like, I don't know what we're going to do together, but I am going to work with you somehow, some way, because it is very rare in the entrepreneurial world. CEOs are very visionary and, they dream a lot. And then they often have COOs behind them that are the worker bees. But I could see like Moni had both. And I was like, she has all these great ideas, but she's like a workhorse and a hustler. And like, she's passionate and she's so heartfelt. And I was like, I just got to be with her. I was like, I don't know. And I like messaged her, and I was working for another organization. I was like, I'm going to create a position. I don't know how, but I have to have you come work with me. And she accepted and worked with me at that organization for a few months, almost a year. And during that time, we got to know each other, became really close, and the idea for AMSE came about. So I'm just grateful that she let me stalk her a little bit online.
Look, one of two things is going to happen. Yeah, you're either going to work together or there's going to be a restraining order like that. And as long as you're prepared for either option, I think it's good. So obviously there was no restraining order, Moni. That's awesome.
No, yeah. You're so sweet, girl. You made my whole day, girl. Put that right in my box.
So, all right. So Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs. Let's hear it. Let's do it.
So you want to talk about? Okay. So Moni has, she's built this amazing group, the Millspouse Creative, and it's an online Facebook group. And like you said, we both are entrepreneurs. We've both built businesses. We both did it the hard way. And we're both working remote. We're both working virtually. And we see that there's a lot going on right now with military spouse entrepreneurship, military spouse remote work. And the narrative is getting louder for military spouses.
Yes.
And what we wanted to do is we wanted to be a voice for the community. And we were both doing so much work with these big organizations on the government level and the corporate level. But then we were also in the weeds with all of the spouses, teaching the classes and mentoring and doing one-on-ones. And constantly the spouses were like, how do we get the jobs from the companies? And how do we get to the corporate things? And then the corporations and the companies were like, how do we get to the spouses? And they kept coming to me and Moni for these things. And we were these conduits back and forth. And we just came together and we said, how do we put this together so that we can get all of these resources and these companies and these great things to the spouses, and we can put all the spouses in one location and ask them, what do you need? And then get that information to the entities that are building these programs and these resources. Because we're just the little guys, right? So the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs was born. We wanted an online membership where spouses can come together and not be, hey, we have this program for veterans and ... and spouses. And we're like, we love veterans. They're great, but they're working on their second career while spouses are working on their first career and living the active duty lifestyle. And it's just not often a safe space where spouses feel like they can talk about what's going on in their lives. So we wanted a space just for us. And that's kind of how this was born.
And then it expanded a little bit. So
Mm.
it started with the idea of a membership. And then with my PR agency, I was getting a lot of requests to work with spouses in certain regions and of certain, what they wrote about, different blogs and photographers and things like that. And I would go into the MilSpouse Creative and say, hey, I have a client looking for X, Y, and Z who's interested. This is a paid position or this is a sponsored opportunity. And so what I decided to do was, oh my gosh, can you get this? Sorry. What I decided to do, that's not what I decided to do was finally, I was telling Flossie, I was like, look, we can do something with this. We know the spouses. We have all of this goodness, all these numbers. This is a great way to really work with spouses that that are going to be able to work on campaigns that get into the grassroots level. So instead of working on with spouses or other people that have large numbers, maybe work with spouses that have more of a niche. So to make more of an impact with the product or service. So we started to run campaigns with other brands and organizations. And then what we quickly found was getting on the phone with them and talking with them is that they didn't know how to market to them. So they were like, oh yeah, we want to get this product in spouse's hands. And we have a conversation like, this entire marketing strategy is not how you're going to reach our community. Like, just so you know, this is not going to work. So Flossie and I added the military media impact specifically to help open their eyes and maybe educate, also support them in helping them really get their brand into the niche community where they can build trust. So if Flossie says something about a product, I'm going to go buy it versus the ad I saw on Facebook. Doesn't matter how good this ad is, and you'll be surprised so many times in our Facebook groups, not just the MilSpouse Creative, but others, somebody will come in and say, hey, I'm thinking of buying the Roomba. Are there any spouses in here who have it? Pros and cons. If there are any spouses that hate it, they are not buying that Roomba because we trust each other, right? We understand our lifestyles, the uniqueness of it, our budgets, and it's just such a very niche community. So our company runs kind of full circle. So we have the campaigns and the strategy, and we have the membership. So we didn't want to just say, hey, spouse, we have this campaign for you and it pays this much or whatever, and then see you later. We really want the spouses to thrive. So in the membership, they have resources that we trust, that we've worked with. They have master classes, so they can come in and learn how to write a media kit or learn about budgeting for their business or how to file their taxes as a military spouse. Then we follow it up with co-working spaces where we can all get together and have conversations and keep each other accountable because it's very inundating. And you can take hundreds of master classes, but what they don't have is that a deeper connection. And so that's what we're doing with the membership.
What are some of the, or are there any kind of common or popular businesses or business tracks that you're seeing your community go into?
We actually just released, we just launched the membership in early November. And a big part of what we do is, like I said earlier, advocacy. So all of our spouses who join, they fill out a little profile on who they are, what they're doing, what type of business they have, how much revenue are they making, do they have kids? And we just issued an impact report last week to give everyone statistics on the hundreds of spouses we already have. So we can know those things. So these programs that are being built, we can say, hey, you're missing the mark because military spouses aren't your traditional entrepreneur. They are creatives and freelancers. They're marketers and they're doing social media and they're photographers and they're web designers. They're working remotely and they mostly have 3 kids and this is the income that they're bringing in. So when you're building resources, they need help on, should they be an LLC or a sole proprietorship? What kind of insurance should they have? They need automation software. So we just released that last week and we're hoping that a lot of that information will open the eyes of a lot of people, which there are amazing military spouses that have like huge manufacturing companies and huge, you know what I mean? There are amazing, but traditionally, most of the spouses that we're seeing are freelancers and they're creatives and they're in the space where they can work from a laptop on their own around their kids and their spouses' schedules. So like Moni said, these opportunities that we have, we're hiring them to do blogging and writing and social media posts and photography and things like that. But we found that they're mostly in the creative space, which is amazing.
Yeah, very cool. What is the pros? If I'm listening to this and I'm not in the military community, why should I care about this?
Well, because
it was
amazing,
a loaded question. I know, but I'm asking, like, I'm not asking as me or you.
Why we think this is important.
Yeah, I'm asking because, there's a lot of people who are not in the military community. And this is a question that they would ask me. Why should I listen to this podcast? Why should I care about this? I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you guys.
Military spouses have the highest unemployment rate in the country. I don't know if people know that, but it's almost 30%. And that's spouses who are willing and trying to find work. And what that does is it impacts our military families as a whole. We're not financially stable because of it. And then we are not mentally stable because of it. And then we beg our spouses, the active duty service member, to get out of the military, which impacts our military readiness. So when our military spouses have a career that they love and that they feel passionate about, they're better mothers, they're better spouses, they're better people. And they're not worried about, hey, I'm going to call my spouse who's in Kuwait at 2:00 in the morning and cry because they're miserable, and they're going to beg them to get out of the military. They're going to say, go, babe, I'll see you when you get home, because I'm living my life and you're living your life. I'm not just chasing you around while you live your life with your career. It literally affects our nation and our whole military readiness, because then our service members can focus on doing their job because their spouse at home is happy and healthy and doing well. Their finances are good. Their children are good. It has a ripple effect really, really far and wide.
And I want to, if I can add to that, I also feel like a lot of misconceptions about the skills and the talents that military spouses carry. Military spouses are not only resilient, but they can make anything work. And most spouses have had so many different career avenues. They're able to do multiple things. They have so many different skills. They're able to lay on top of each other and really help organization. They acclimate to things very well. They're flexible. They're resilient. They're willing to learn new skills, and they're willing to do it no matter where they're at. So I feel like a lot of times, when you look at that resume or the organization and you're like, well, there's so many different gaps, and why did you work at the grocery store and then you were retail and then you worked at a bank? Well, that's the only thing I could get at the time. And so now I have a great skill set. I can sell things. I can count money. There's just so many different skill sets I think that spouses have, where some people just go to school for one thing or work on one thing, and spouses are able to do multiple things. So I really like to point that out, that our spouses are really, and a lot of spouses have degrees. They have degrees that are just sitting dormant because they can't practice it. Like that's what happened to me. I couldn't practice my PR and communications degree because nobody would give me the time of day because I didn't have experience, but I had the passion, the drive, and the know-how. So I really like to point that out, because our spouses the power of the male spouse is a real thing. That's what I mean.
It is. And it's not just women, I will say, right? Women are not the only spouses. There's men who are military spouses too. And I think if there's one underrepresented society in military spouses, the male military spouse is another subset of that, who rarely gets, but I saw on your page and your information, you make it a point to point out that yes, whoever, as long as they're a spouse, we're not catering exclusively to women or wives. This is for husband, men, anybody who's a military spouse, is eligible for this. And do you have many men in the group yet, or working with you yet?
I think we have one that's a member, and then in the Male Spouse Creative, we have 4 or 5 males. And you're absolutely right. And because my background is public relations, I make it a point to make sure that that's included in our branding and our messaging, and also any kind of, and diversity as well. that's important to us too. So that's what we try to do with AMSE. But yeah, we have one. So if you're a male spouse, we want you, come on over.
I pay attention to those because, I'm heavily in that community as well. And I'm happy to pass on some resources to you all that we have thoroughly vetted and worked with to, for your own network. But yeah. And so I pay attention to the nuances and the phrasing, and I don't remember seeing any other military spouse geared effort or organization that makes it a point to point out that we're not just, for the women too. So I did notice that. So hats off.
Good.
It's almost like you know what you're doing. Like you have experience doing that. It's crazy. Yeah. It's good
And we're
stuff.
very careful about that. And that's part of what we tell companies too, that you can't exclude, even when they get up and they say, oh, well, your husband, and they use the word husband instead of service member. And we're like, you have to change your vocabulary because it is not your husband. We have a lot of female veteran, female service members that have, it's just, you have to change your whole way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
And they have to start with their vocabulary to change their mindset.
Yeah. They could literally just put the word spouse in, like, easy peasy, done.
And that's part of the conversation.
Service member.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of the conversations we're having with those that we're creating strategies with. Like, you can't say she or her or girls. Like, you can't do that because not all spouses are women. And you have to be open to that. So it's a mind shift, and it's a cultural mind shift because it's, it's something that we're getting better. Everybody's getting better at it.
Yeah.
So the more we can bring it to the forefront and awareness, the easier it is for companies to recognize it and implement it.
So where do you
branding too? Yeah, even the branding. Like if it's a spouse program, it doesn't need to be pink.
Yeah.
Like it's for spouses. Why is it pink? Like, you're segregating us. It's like, be inclusive and open it and make everybody feel like they're welcome, then they can be a part of it, right? Because as a spouse, there are so many other things that make us feel excluded and alone. So that's something we really think about.
Perfect. So if you're going to look ahead 5 years, where do you guys see yourselves?
I'm going to let this one take that one.
Well, I always say world domination. If you had asked me 5 years ago if I would be where I'm at today, I would have never in my wildest dreams. But I guess we both always strive to be better. We're both still running our own companies as well on the side. We both have our own
side hustle.
We both have AMSE too. Yeah. And we want AMSE to be a place where military spouses can come and get all of the resources that they need. If they want to start a business, if they're already in their business and they need help or support and they want to lean on each other, we just want it to be the go-to place. And we want organizations and companies that are doing great things for military spouses and entrepreneurs to partner and collaborate and not reinvent the wheel. And we're not looking to, step on anybody's toes or build those programs or, do those things. We're looking to just be the voice for our community and help them mold and shape that. So we're hoping that we can be that really, really loud voice in the room, just saying, "Hey, entrepreneurship's an option. We don't think that you should keep ramming jobs down our throats because it doesn't always fit. There's a reason the unemployment rate is so high, and that maybe we should start talking about how self-employment and remote work is a little bit of a better fit, and then." Let's start making more resources to show spouses how we can help them do that. So 5 years from now, I'm hoping that it's just an everyday thing that a spouse knows that she doesn't have to get a job, that she can just do her own thing too.
Well, and one of the things that...
Or his own thing.
Absolutely. One of the things that frustrated me when I started looking for work is the first place I went to was the base. To family, I can't even remember what it is. I think it's the Family Readiness Center.
Family Readiness, yeah.
And I said, hey, I just started a business. I'd really like to find out what resources you have. And they were like, oh, you can write a resume. You can apply for a federal job. I said, I just started a business. How can you support me? Are there local networking groups? Are there any 101? Like, what is there? And they had nothing. They want to push, writing a resume and applying for that federal job. So you could take the federal class on how to apply for the federal job and then apply.
Right.
And so one of my big visionary goals would be for a spouse to be able to walk in and say, I just became an entrepreneur. What resources do you have? And they would say, you know what? That's amazing, because AMSE has resources here every month.
Perfect.
They do virtual master classes here on base. And then you can come and either co-work or you can call in and co-work. Like that to me would be amazing at every base across the nation, across the globe.
Yeah. How cool would that be? It's a game changer. It's a game changer.
And it's also like it gives spouses an option where if you do go up there and you're like, hey, I'm thinking of starting a job. And they're like, that's great. Here's the career and these are resources. This is the entrepreneur and these are resources. And we have options for both. So it might get the wheels turning and inspire spouses to dream bigger and be goal-getters and crush their biggest visions.
Awesome. What do your husbands think of this?
When I told Roy I was going to start another business,
it's like having another kid. Yeah.
He was like, well, how you can find the time? I was like, well, Roy is, and I think I could speak on behalf of Flossie too. Like our spouses are our biggest cheerleaders. Like we'll be on FaceTime working for a few hours and you hear the men in the back giving advice, saying things, encouraging us, and you can hear Roy saying something to Mike. And it's just really, they're our biggest supporters. I really couldn't do any of this without Roy. He helps me. He's there when being an entrepreneur is a hard thing. It's not easy. There are some really tough days. And he is there to pick me up, encourages me to get back up the next day and just have your bad day. Always has ideas. And I'm like, babe, that doesn't work in the entrepreneur, but good idea.
My husband does the same thing. He's always like, why don't you blah, 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 blah. I go, that's not a thing, but I appreciate your love and support and you trying.
There is a balance. And I talk about this a lot. There is that, well, why can't you not work at this time or not do this at this time? And it's like you have to really educate and explain, like, I am everybody in this company, or we have volunteers, or we have a team member, and I have to work extra hours some days and on the weekends to do a little extra. So it's a balancing act, but Roy is my biggest cheerleader.
Nice. All right. So here at American Snippets, part of why we started this, and I think maybe you guys will connect with this more as well. As a Gold Star wife, it started to impact me hearing all the negative talk. The American dream is dead. This country sucks. You suck. You suck. And I'm like, look, we gave a lot for this country. Why don't you stop complaining and get up and go take advantage of it, right? And so I let that impact me negatively for a while, and that actually got me depressed. And then I was like, no, I'm going to be that voice, and come back and remind people this country is made of amazing people. There's more amazing people in this country than not. More resilient, resourceful, strong, impactful, caring, kind people in this country than not. And they're going and getting the American dream, and they're giving it back to other people along the way. And to me, that's what the American dream is strongly about. And so it's important for us because we know that the American dream is something different to everybody. It doesn't look the same to everybody, which is what we think is so cool about it. So we like to ask our guests, what does that American dream look like for you? What does that mean for you?
So for me, I feel like I'm already living it. I grew up a poor kid with, a single mom on welfare, and I became a teenage mom with a GED. And here I am with degrees, and I've started multiple businesses, and I've made impact all over the world to people. And if that's not the American dream, I don't know what is, because honestly, with hard work and determination and heart, I think you can really do anything. And that's honestly the American dream right there. I didn't have anything given to me ever in my life. So that's it.
Wow, that is a whole other story right there. That's like at least 2 other episodes right there. Yeah.
No, Flossie she's amazing. You should have her back on again. She has such a really great story on resilience and overcoming some really tough stuff, but she's a phenomenal woman. I feel like I'm living it. I'm free. My kids go to school. There's nothing that I can't do if I don't want to. There's no resource I can't tap into if I don't, if I research it. I feel like I'm living the American dream. I have a house I can buy, anywhere I can go, I can travel. So I say, if you work hard, you have passion and drive, and you're willing to go through the ebbs and flows, and you're positive about where you are and where you stand, that can be your American dream.
Perfect. And if people want to connect with you guys individually and then your organization now, hook us up with all that info.
Well, we're both all over social. So we're both on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. So you can find us both individually under Flossie Hall and Moni Jefferson. And then you can find AMSE too under the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs.
Perfect. Thank you guys both so much, A, for all you do, B, for taking the time to sit down and share your time with us today and your insight.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.